Colette Abraham.
Alexis Wilcoxon.
Michaela Wilson.
All right. So on our outline, it says the humanist goes first, the humanist spokesperson. So that is you, Colette. You got this.
As we progress through the 21st century, we need an affirmative and hopeful vision. That vision is humanism. It offers an alternative that can serve present-day needs and guide humankind toward the future. The next century should be the humanistic century. We have seen endless wars, global poverty, corrupt governments, and unyielding racism. We need a vision, a declaration that will curb those modern-day threats. In order for humanity to survive, there needs to be bold and daring measures. We desire and put forth a humanistic view that realizes the capabilities and the potential fulfillment to all. It is a call to cooperate for the common good. There are 3 ways in which we can accomplish this vision. First, our life fulfillment can be understood and obtained through intelligence, achievement, personal ability and talents, and the human experience. We can lift those around us by working together and respecting all individuals through peace, dignity, freedom of thought, and by encouraging human rights. Second, we need to extend the uses of scientific method, not renounce them. To fuse reason with compassion in order to build a constructive social and moral values. Scientific methods result in concrete ideas and provide evidence on how humans thrive and develop. Technology is also a science that improves the human condition in ways once thought impossible. It is the way of the future, the hope of tomorrow, and the path to human growth and progression. Finally, we are all committed to an open and democratic society. We must extend participatory democracy in its truest sense. All persons should have a voice in developing the values and goals that determine their lives. These principles, among many others, establish the humanistic vision, a view that can bring personal meaning and significance to life.
Perfect. Who wants to introduce the opening statement for the religious side?
I guess I can give it a whirl. It's not going to be all set up like yours is, though, Colette. The freedom of religion was given to us by our forefathers as one of the very first freedoms in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. As it states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Elder Oaks has stated that the First Amendment guarantees a free exercise of religion and was intended to grant more freedom to religious action than to other kinds of actions. Religious actions should not be treated as equal actions to those based on other beliefs. Today, in our modern society, new civil rights are beginning to impede on the religious rights of others, and the religious voices of others are being silenced due to the accusations that they are eliminating rights of others. Religious values and political realities are interlinked because of the origin of our Constitution. Our Constitution was created with the influence of Christianity, and our freedoms would be seriously jeopardized if that influence is eliminated. A professor has stated, whose name I can't pronounce, the attempt to ground respect for equality on a purely secular basis ignores the vital contribution by Christianity to its spread. It is folly to believe that it could survive without the continuing aid of religious belief. Many of the morals in society are created off of religious beliefs. The freedom to act on religious beliefs and support religion should be protected, especially and continually.
Awesome. Do you want to go, Katie, as round 2 spokesperson?
Katie, I
Okay.
think that you're muted.
Oh, okay. Good. Can y'all hear me now? Okay. Life can be fulfilling when we use our own abilities and intelligence. We have within ourselves the power for achievement and growth, and we can make the world around us better by drawing together and accepting others in peaceful and human ways. To accomplish this goal, we have to look at our 2 main arguments. Number 1, as mentioned in our opening statement, society can progress and human lives can improve if we were to expand our scientific minds and use technology. Man has a larger understanding of the universe, his scientific achievements, and a deeper appreciation of brotherhood. Man can learn to face the crisis of life in terms of his own knowledge of his naturalness and probability. Individuals should be encouraged to realize their own creative talents and desires. Technology is a vital key to human progress and development. We would resist any moves to censor basic scientific research on moral, political, or social grounds. We insist that scientific studies that have been peer-reviewed and reproduced in accordance with the highest standards be the sole basis for public policy and education. Obviously, technology must be carefully judged by the consequences of its use. Harmful and destructive changes should be avoided. We are not advocating the use of scientific intelligence independent of or in opposition to emotion, for we believe in the cultivation of feeling and love. Reason, balanced with compassion and intelligence, are the most effective instruments that humankind possess. Critical intelligence, infused by a sense of human caring, is the best method that humanity has for resolving problems. Expanding our technology and the scientific method is a factor in our own ultimate goal, fulfillment, which is the fulfillment for potential growth in each human personality, not for a favored few, but for all humankind. Through labor, science, philosophy, friendship, and love, the goal of humanism is to create a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good. Number 2, a democracy can also ensure this ultimate goal and vision. To enhance freedom and dignity, the individual must experience a full range of civil liberties in all societies. Humanists affirm the inherent right of all individuals to freely make choices that affect themselves and their person. All persons should have a voice in developing the values and goals that determine their lives, and everyone has a right to cultural opportunity to fulfill his or her unique capacities and talents. The energy and idealism of the young, they deserve to be appreciated and channeled to constructive purposes. In order to extend participatory democracy to all, alienating forces should be modified or eradicated. The separation of church and state are imperatives. The state should encourage maximum freedom for different moral, political, religious, and social values in society. This includes freedom of speech, political democracy, fair judicial process, religious freedom, freedom of association, and artistic, scientific, and cultural freedom. We would safeguard, extend, and implement the principles of human freedom evolved from the Magna Carta to the Bill of Rights to the Rights of Man and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Thank you.
Good job. Alexis, do you want to take a swing at it?
Oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so I basically just have to talk about two things that he talked about in here. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so he basically talks about how people are bullying each other that are standing up for their rights for religious purposes. He talked about a woman that was in where did it go? In Mongolia, and she was standing up for the right for people to have the freedom of speech. And because she did that, other people stood up with her. 20 other people did, and they were mostly women. And they even took it to the extreme of doing a hunger strike for 5 days. And because of this, their government granted them to have the freedom that they chose to have. And he also talked about how, in the religious purpose, he was talking about how there are many people of different groups that are attacking those who want to talk about their religious views. And he was talking about the atheist people. Basically, he was talking about how we are making them fear to speak up for their beliefs, and they are stating that they are wrong and they should not have a say in certain things. And there was a quote that he gave that was talking about the California's Proposition 8 against same-sex marriage. And he said, "I'm not intending it to harm the religion. I think they do wonderful things, nice people. My single goal is to get them out of the same-sex marriage business and back to helping hurricane victims." Basically, this quote was saying that religion should only come in certain topics, and that it's just affecting the ones that they should be heard. And after this quote, when I read it, basically is saying that they're afraid that if religious people stand up, that others will follow and they will realize what they're doing is wrong. And so in the talk, Elder Oaks basically said there's a couple things that people can do when they need to talk about religious beliefs and have a debate. He said they must speak with love and always showing patience, understanding, and compassion towards our adversities. Second, we must not be deteriorated or coerced into silence by the kinds of intimidation that he has described. We must insist on our constitutional right and duty to exercise our religion, to vote our conscience on public issues, and to participate in elections and debates in the public square of the Hall of Justice. These are the rights of all citizens, and they are also the rights of religious leaders. And then the next one, third, he says we must insist on our freedom to preach the doctrines of our faith. Why do I make this obvious point? Religious people who share our morals, convictions, feels some intimidation. And then fourth, he says, as advocates of the obvious truth that persons with religious positions or motives have the right to express their religious views in public, we must nevertheless be wise in our political participation. And fifth and finally, he says, Latter-day Saints must be careful never to support or act upon the idea that a person must subscribe to some particular set of religious beliefs in order to qualify for a public office. So basically he's saying that everyone should have the right to their religious freedoms and their beliefs. Even if they are bullied, they should stand up for what they believe in.
job. See, you totally did it.
Ugh.
Okay, so this one is round 3. So what happens in this round is I will be the spokesperson for this round. So what will happen, if you want to take this part, Susan, you can. But you'll ask me a question, I'll answer, and then I'll ask you a question, and then you will answer. And we'll go back and forth for 5-10 minutes. Would you like to do that, Susan? I wonder if she's froze.
You scared her away.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's not working because I can hear you, but it looks like she's frozen.
Yeah. Well, do you want me to ask you questions, Alexa, since you just went? And I can ask you questions about what you just said. Wait, no, Susan's there. I saw Susan move.
Oh, is she moving?
Maybe.
I think your mic is muted, Susan.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm on the religious side.
Okay. So do you want to ask me a question, and then I'll ask you a question? I'll answer and then ask you one. Do you want to do that, or? Okay.
How? I don't know how to do this. How would the family policy be shaped if this were the predominant approach?
Ooh. How the family would be shaped?
Family policy.
How family policy would be shaped. Let me think about this for a second. So I think that we don't want to stray from what has already been in our government. We really want to still incorporate all of the things that have made this government, Constitution, Bill of Rights, all of that. And so I think we'd still pass laws that reflect that. In regards to family policy, we want to encourage human freedom. So that means that, you know, traditional nuclear families aren't necessarily the way to go, because we, as humans, we're expanding and we're finding different things that make our lives fulfilling. So it really depends on when people come and they vote on family policy, they still do have the say of what they want to see passed. So that traditional view might be outdated a little, but it's still being heard, if that makes sense. It's still being heard. We still can vote on those things, but we really encourage more freedom of thought. Okay.
Very nicely put.
It's hard being devil's advocate. Okay. I'll ask a question. So how can religion not be seen as oppressive when it seems to dictate and dominate lives? Religion encourages dependence and belief in the logically unknown. It further bars us from recognizing the full power and potential we truly have. So what do you say to people that think that they believe that religion is actually oppressive?
Is this for me?
Yeah.
I guess in a debate you're not just supposed to say they're wrong, huh? You know, just, I don't know. I mean, everybody's entitled to their views, and, you know, I personally don't feel that religion is oppressive to me, and I don't think I should be judged by somebody else's opinion. And I thought that the man that quoted, that Michaela quoted was, he said that religious people should just go back to helping the hurricane victims, was being really condescending. That's all I have.
Okay. And then you asked me one more question.
Okay. What do you think is the best strength that the humanists have because they're trying to silence the religious voices?
So I don't think that the humanistic view actually silences religious thought. We acknowledge that religious thought has, we owe a vast debt to the traditional religions because they have all taught us good moral, ethical values and morals. So they're just a little outdated. They don't really, we need a better purpose, better view, and that's the humanistic view. And that really encourages cooperation, working together. It really wants to bring in all aspects from government, from, you know, our government to the international side. It really wants to bring together not just our communities, not just individuals, but the whole world. And that they use it, like we said, through expanding our scientific methods, because sometimes religion doesn't really, all those traditional views don't really explain the unknown. They're just unknowns. They're false ideologies. And so we need something that really, instead of creating wishful thinking, we need something solid. We need something factual. And that really promotes people to kind of dig deep within themselves and kind of feel inspired to act on what is known and come together, and it gives them a greater sense of purpose, I guess. And so I think that's really awesome about humanistic view, is that we don't get ourselves caught up and argue over, you know, somebody's testimony, somebody's word. We don't get caught up. We actually just put all of that aside and we just work together with what we know.
Okay. Very well put.
Okay, I'll ask one last question for the cross-examination. So I'll ask you one more question. Many today argue that there needs to be freedom from religion because it can feel encroaching or limiting. There are at least 500 million declared non-believers in the world. So what is the special value of having religious freedom when most of them don't even claim a religion?
Well, I think that's like an oxymoron, because that's the very freedom that allows them to feel that way. Can you hear me? Okay. You know, we live in a country that allows us to, that has been founded on and being allowed to agree or disagree with the government and the land we live in and our neighbors. And that's what's so significant to having religious freedom, because that allows people to not capture, not to grasp hold of that. I just feel like the people are trying to change the rules halfway through the game. You know, they're contending that there is no God, and it reminds me of 2 Nephi 28:20, when people will rage in their hearts against the good that has been established. So.
Perfect. Okay, that was like 12 minutes, almost 13 minutes there. So we'll just go ahead and go to the closing statement. So Colette, do you want to close the humanistic side? Good job, Susan.
Okay, sorry, my mic didn't want to unmute. These are times for men and women of goodwill to further the building of a peaceful and prosperous world. Despite differing perspectives on societal, ethical, philosophical, and geographical issues, we recognize the freedom, value, and respect to which all of the world's individuals are entitled. We further urge the use of reason and compassion to produce the kind of world we want, a world in which peace, prosperity, freedom, and happiness are widely shared. The abuse of power and consequent results can only lead to decline and hardship, and will threaten the common bonds of humanity that we all long for. We can pursue, achieve, and progress to our ultimate personal and collective potential. After all, we are We are responsible for who we are and what we can become. Let us all work together for a human world full of possibilities. We cannot wait for a reconciliation of competing political and economic problems. We can initiate new directions for humankind by expanding the scientific method and technology through a balanced and participatory democracy and by encouraging the expression and growth of the human soul. For we believe that humankind has the potential, intelligence, goodwill, and cooperative skill to implement this commitment. Through humanism, we can find purpose, hope, and a desirable future.
Okay, Michaela, do you want to close the religious side?
Sure. Religion has always been a large part of our society. Wow. Restart. Religion is and always has been a large part of our society and was a huge factor in the creation of our very government. Our government was founded on Christian beliefs by Christian men, and due to their beliefs, the freedom of religion was placed at the forefront of the Bill of Rights. Our freedom of religion should not be undermined or degraded by the new civil rights or the beliefs or ideas of others. Religious freedom should be protected continually and should remain a part of our society to enhance it and I lost my spot. And eliminate some of the degrading factors. Religion has been a big part and should continue to be a big part, and religious freedom allows that to happen.
Okay, that's awesome, you guys. That was our debate. So I guess I'll ask the questions for us to all talk about if we want. The first question, as we wrap up our debate, our group discussion question is, do you think that the authors of your article was taking the moral high ground or making a moral statement? Why or why not? So who wants to answer that for the humanist side?
I have to say that we have the Humanist Manifesto #1 and Humanist Manifesto #2, and I would have to say that the #1 did not really take the moral high ground. They were very bold and coming straight out and saying there is no God, you guys are silly, and it's supernatural, and you know it was just disconnected. But in comparing that to the second Human Manifesto that was done in 1973, it seemed like they were more cautious of using clever words to make it sound like we were all on the same page. They were sounding like they were taking the moral high ground. So in the writing, I think so, but in their intentions, I don't think so, because when you get to the humanity as a whole, they pretty much said we want this to be the worldwide religion, and we are going to do what it takes to get everybody to do this. So I guess in the question there's a difference between how they write it and present it compared to their intentions and why we have to really look into what they're saying.
I know for like our group, like we tried really hard to like rewrite it in a way so that we could be really clever. So you guys, Alexis, Michaela, and Susan, wouldn't get us on removing God out of the argument. Like we tried really hard to rephrase it. But yeah, you're right, Katie, how they were the first one was just very bold, very blunt, just threw it right at you. And then when you read it, I mean, even when I was like listening to you guys saying our side of the argument, it was like, this kind of sounds pretty good. You know, we're talking about peace and loving each other, and it sounds really good. And but once you get to the end of the second manifesto, it's like, hey, this is the only view, this is the view that's gonna solve all of our problems. You know, it's gonna take time to do it, but this is the way it needs to be. That's how I got the second manifesto as well.
We were also really careful about avoiding certain topics like sexual freedoms and what that entails that were found in the article, on abortion and things like that are controversial, that they also stood up for. We made it all sound good and peaceful and happy.
Yeah, I kind of noticed when I was reading the manifestos, I felt like a lot of things were somewhat contradicting to each other. Like, we should have freedom of religion, and yet at the end, they're like, this should be the only religion, like, this should be the only belief. And the idea is, like, we're going to work together as a society, and yet everybody should seek after their own satisfaction and fulfillment. And to me, in my head, I was like, that's contradicting. In what world is someone going to give up their satisfactions for someone else's satisfaction or the greater good unless they feel some other motivation? Like, I don't know. I thought it was so confusing.
No, I agree with you. Everything you just said, Michaela. I was just like, I read it twice, and I was just like, I'm just confused on what they actually want to do and what they don't want to do. But yeah, I agree.
And I think they also, I mean, a little positive twist, they recognized, I think, maybe I interpreted it incorrectly, but that there was a purpose for religion, and it was more of a historical purpose, I think, that they kind of put there, and not maybe necessarily a current purpose. But I think they recognized that that did bring a good influence at some point into the United States and whatnot, but just throwing that out there.
Yep.
I was very bothered by one of the sentences in particular, if you can pick one. But they say people are more important than decalogues, rules, prescriptions, or regulations. So, and yet that's what they want us to do. That's what they want us to feel and what they want us to be. And I don't know, it's just the selfishness and the individualism that is just individualism that's inserted into all this is absolutely overwhelming. And you know, you go back to Satan's plan compared to Christ's plan, and it couldn't be two opposites right in front of us right now. And how to get rid of God so that there's no consequence of anything. They talk about reason, and it's like, well, whose reason? Based on what? I mean, where's our guide?
Right.
So.
Well, I kind of like what Michaela said, where it was like, you know, we're going to have this unified goal of promoting peace, prosperity, and all this stuff, but we're going to let everybody do whatever they want. We're not going to limit on all of these things. We're not going to dictate and blah, 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 blah. But how can you prescribe a united mission when you're telling everybody to do what they want? You know, it was so confusing. And I love, you know, with the gospel is that our mission is to be united with Christ. Mm-hmm. And that is by adhering to what actually makes us feel fulfilled. And that is Christ, not our own pleasures, not our own devices, anything. And so it's just, and it's amazing because when you look at the church all over the world, we're all united in one goal. It's just the way it is. And it's not because we're doing whatever we want. It's because we're focusing on one thing. And I just can't see people focusing on the humanistic view when they're doing whatever they want. So, I don't know.
That's a good point. Oh, am I muted? Let's see.
No, you're good. I can hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It always makes me think of when the atheists and the agnostics die and go pass from this world. How shocked are they going to be that they're going to find out there is a God? I think that religion acknowledges God is in control, and it makes me think of the mariners that sailed their ships by the North Star. That star was always there to guide them in their journeys. And I think the world today needs a focus to live their lives by, and that's why everything's such a mess. Everybody's, to use the expression, herding cats. Everybody's trying to do different things in different ways, and there's no continuity. So, but yeah, everybody did a really good job presenting their humanistic view. And you got done talking, I'm nodding my head, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, because we left out God. We left out how they say leave us alone if we want to get divorced or sleep with who we want or have abortions and birth control and worshiping trees. But that's what I noticed in the articles. There's nothing to turn to here. There's no moral ground, and if that's what I want to say, there's no North Star in their plan. It's absolute chaos. They talk about peace, and I see chaos written all over it, because it's like, what's the North Star in this movement?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you, Susan. When I was listening to everybody saying their piece about it, if I hadn't gone myself and read the manifestos, I'd probably been like, yeah, I agree with a lot of the basic things you're saying. I mean, there were some things that you guys brought up that I was like, I could see how that could be a problem in society if that actually went through. But I think that that's how people do it now. They focus, they put all this good stuff in with the not so good stuff, and then they just focus so much on the things that other people are going to agree on and kind of hide the other things, so that then they can get more agreement and whatnot, and kind of trick people into being on their side, when really if they knew everything they wouldn't agree.
Yeah.
And as we're researching and all that, in the way that they present it, especially how we purposely tried to take out a lot of the conversation and the hostile attack against anybody who believes in a God or a supreme being. If they get away with their clever words, it does make those that believe in God or a supreme being look like the hostile ones, or they look like the dangerous group when they take it out. And so I understand why we need to know what they're saying, so that we can say, oh yeah, but what about you saying that supreme, the supernatural is unacceptable and we will get rid of it, and and pull those bullets out so the whole public can hear what's under their clever words. So
very good. I was death of this assignment.
Yeah.
You all did such a good job.
So the last question is, are religious folks the only one with values and morals? Can morality exist without religion? Why or why not?
To be honest, I think that I have known a lot of people who are really, really, really great people that have no real belief in God or anything like that. But at the same time, I don't want to say that morality can exist without religion, because I think that the very essence of morality comes from the light of Christ within us, and that in itself is religion, but I have seen people motivated to be good people by things other than religion, such as like keeping a family name clean kind of a thing, and just respect for themselves and for others. And I've seen other motivators, but I think that at the core of it, religion kind of is, it's connected to morality. It's where a lot of people get their morality.
I like that you said that, Michaela, because that's kind of what I was thinking. But it reminds me of like the investigators of the church. Like they know what they're doing, or the way that the world is living is wrong, but they don't really understand why they feel like that. And I think it is the light of Christ telling them, and the Holy Ghost telling them that everything has to do with religion and the standards that we live. So that's kind of what I thought about the entire time reading it. But I agree with you.
I think we need to understand how people are defining religion, because these guys are slowly inserting, calling themselves a religion. And so my husband and I were talking about pure religion.
Yeah.
And if you were to take God out of all your religions and people still live the way they did, we know that it's these religious organizations that donate their time to help people. They donate their money to people within the country and without, out of the country, and just the whole setup of how we take care of each other in our families, and how we're taught to, it's always a group thing. It's always taking care of each other, no matter what our means are, in almost every religion. And, so how do we decipher between that definition and these guys who are all about individual? It's all about individual. They're not reaching out to anybody. We're going to be happy and peaceful if you just leave me alone and let me do what I want in any way I want. That's weird.
All right. Does anyone want to say anything else?
I was just going to briefly answer the question. Because Katie said, how do you define religion? And I was thinking, how do you define morality? Because I guess we could define that in different ways somewhat as well. And so if we're defining it as good and positive and growth and whatnot, I guess a lot of people are moral. They want goodness. They want good communities. They want, they just want to go about it in different ways and more individualized ways, I guess, and without maybe a central focus, more their own focus, and what works for them, and how they can attain a higher level. But they also talked about, overcoming poverty and things like that too. So wanting to somehow better those around them and let everyone have a say. So I mean, there was, I don't know, some moral high ground there, I think, too, through different means. Like I said, peace, overcoming poverty, education, that type of thing.
I think that's where those contradictions come in, because we know that in collecting in our data the results of divorce, we know the results of abortions, we know the results of cohabitation, and they don't align with peace. They don't align with getting along. And we see the destruction that happens with children that are products of this, or children that are not products of this. So it's also very, very contradictory. So I actually have asked my kids, because I'm doing so much of this, I went up to my kids and I said, why do you believe in God? And I was hoping they didn't say something like, because. And I was really impressed with my son. He started to, and then he stopped for a second, because they know I'm bombarding him with this stuff all the time. And he said he went back into his childhood and how he was affected by experiences. And yes, it all does come to feelings, and they try to get rid of our feelings, yet that's what the Holy Ghost is. But I'm kind of babbling. I was just really proud of the fact that he brought in the Holy Ghost, because I think that's what trumps everything.
Mhm.
There are things that happen to us that we cannot deny. Nobody can put the feeling of electricity that shoots through our body when we feel the Spirit and it testifies of a truth, especially when it's out of the blue. I know many times we're just talking about getting a drink of milk, but somehow the Spirit testifies of where that milk comes from or something, because you get that electricity through you that nobody can take away.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just bearing testimony. I'm so grateful for the Holy Ghost, because this can be very confusing. And I know when I read this, I did not feel electricity. I did not feel light. I did not see the good that was in it. And I felt that through and through, and it was awesome. And I feel sorry for anybody who does not understand that gift.
Okay. Well, it was interesting because when I was reading the manifesto and then Elder Oaks's talk, I'm like, there are at least 5 scriptural accounts that I can name off the top of my head that really truly apply to this. And so I went in and I was like, yep, here's a story. Yep, here's a story. This is what the humanist Korihor said, and this is what the humanist, Zeezrom said. And how did how did the prophets answer their questions? And every time they answered, I'm like, it's because they have a deep a deep conviction and an abiding testimony of what they know to be true, and nothing will ever take that away for what they know to be true. And it was just amazing because it also bore testimony to me that I know what I know is true. I know that the gospel is true, and no one can take that testimony away from me. And in Alma, he said in one scripture, he's like, I just want to go onto the rooftops and praise, or I just want to shout from the rooftops and hope my voice is the sound of trumpets. I'm like, exactly. That is what the gospel does, is that when we are able to feel the gospel, feel that electricity, we want to share it with the whole world because we know that it's going to help each other. And that's what unites us, is the gospel. It's nothing about individualism, nothing. And we just hope that other people will feel that electricity and will gain a testimony, because that is the only way that they can really fortify themselves against all these core horrors in the world. And I don't know, it was really cool to read this week, even though it was hard. This week was really hard, but you guys did awesome. It was a good discussion today. So, do you guys want to head off? Are you ready to close?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you guys. You did awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your help, Ashley.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Read your scriptures. Read your scriptures.
Definitely.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.